Hey guys, the name is Chris Barocci. Welcome to Gear Corner. This is a follow-up video on my comparison of the Two Notes Captor X, this guy, and the Universal Audio aux box, this one right over here. I made a video after owning the Captor X for just a short period of time, really, just 1 or 2 weeks, and I still wasn't really settled on my favorite cab. But now, I've found my favorite cab in both of these. It was purely a tonal decision, the cab I went for. I didn't want a certain cab type to win and forced it to work. I just went back and forth between different cabs and went for the best sounding one. And this decision is actually pretty interesting. We'll talk about it in a second. If you like what I'm doing here, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. Check out the description box for additional infos, timestamps, gear links, and merchandise. Yes, I finally managed to create a few stuff like t-shirts, 2 different hoodies, tone socks, obviously. If you feel like grabbing any of those, I would absolutely appreciate it. And of course, thank you in advance for supporting the channel. In the original comparison video, I didn't really tell you my personal opinion on the Captor X and on the aux because I wanted to stay as objective as I possibly could. But now it's time to tell you how and why I use them and what, in my personal opinion, the pros and cons are of these two. Let's kick off with some clean tones, which is going to be the guitar going straight into the amp, which is the Rev Dynamis 740 head, and then into the Captor X or the aux, and then to the audio interface and the computer to record it. I'll play first and then I'll explain what you just heard. And to make this even more fun, let's do a short blindfold test. All right, let's see if you were right or wrong with your guesses. The first one, reveal time. The first one was the aux box and the second, the Captor X. Let's check out the playing again, but this time with the settings on screen. As you can see, I use a similar 2x12 cab on both of these. That's really interesting for me because for some reason I end up using these 2-rock style 2x12 cabs on all of these digital units like multi-effects and cab sims like these, etc. Let me know in the comments below. I really want to know which kind of cabs you end up liking in these cab simulations. And now let's play some crunch tones with the Cornerstone Gladio and the Caslator Toxic Twins into the clean RAV channel. And now it's time to fire up the old beast. The Mesa Mark III, this one, and its lead channel into the Captor X and the aux box. Let me show you the presets I'm using with the Captor X and with the aux box. I have the software here on my laptop, so let's take a look at it. This is the Captor X, and the cab is called Free Rock 2. Guess which cab is that? Yeah, so it's a dynamic IR made by 2Notes, and I have two mics in front of the cab, the Ribbon 121 and the Condenser 87. I have the enhancer off for this cab. I didn't feel like I need anything enhanced. And the EQ is pretty subtle. I have a low cut or high pass filter, which is the fancy name for the same thing, at 79 Hertz. And then I have quite a bit of bass cut, like 4 dBs at 70 something, 78 Hertz. And then really just subtle things like -1 dB around 470 Hertz, then 2 dB plus at 880, and 2 dB plus at, what was it, 2.2K, and 3 dBs minus at 5.5 to get rid of that sizzly top end. So that's pretty much it. I don't have the twin tracker on, and I do have some ambience on like the reverb setting on a very low setting, like 16% wet and rest is dry. And it's really just a studio, sort of a room acoustic. It's really just an ambience thing. And now my preset on the aux box I use a lot, and you've heard in this video. That's going to be this 2x12 cab, which is called the Alnico 50. And they say it's a closed back cabinet with two Alnico 50 watt speakers. Yeah. And then the two mics I use are a dynamic 421 and a Ribbon 121. Again, it's a good combination. I have the low cut active on both, and I have EQ settings on both. If you go to the actual graphic EQ, you can see what's going on here. This is the EQ for the dynamic mic, the 421, where I took out a lot of low end actually. I found a good mid-range spot around 1K, which I boosted a little bit, and I gave it quite a bit of high end to open it up. As you can see, all of these simulations just work in a different way, and every specific cab simulation has a different characteristic. And if you want to make it work for you with your rig, you might want to tweak it in a very different way than, let's say, another cab simulator with another cab with other mics in front of it. So yeah, and then for the ribbon mic, I did something similar, but yeah, not a lot of presence added to it. Like, it's more like a high cut actually, and low cut as well, around 100 hertz, and yeah, quite a crazy mid boost to make it more direct sounding and more, well, punchy in a way. Yeah, so that's it. And I also have room mics active, which is something that's awesome about the aux, that you can decide to go for no room mics or stereo room mics or mono room mics. And those sound exceptionally real and make your guitar tone sound more, well, authentic, really. I can pan these two close mics, with which it just sounds a little bit less narrow at the end. And that's something I do love about it and use a lot. And then in the master section, right here, you have all these plugins basically installed, like incorporated in this surface. And one of that is EQ, which is a second EQ section basically. And I didn't do a lot here. As you can see, it's just a very subtle sort of presence boost, and that's pretty much it. I could probably turn this off and don't realize it, but I kind of preferred it on, so I left it on. And then here's the 1176, which is, yeah, it's not supposed to be noticeable at all. It's just there to create that feeling of using an actual amp with an actual cabinet in front of you really loud. And the plate reverb is again magical. I love it. I have it on a very subtle setting, like the dry wet knob is pretty much at dry, but it just gives it a hint of this really pretty subtle plate reverb. And the reverb time is also very short. It's like point something seconds, so it's really, really short. Yeah, and that's it. I record a lot of bass, even though I'm not a bass player. I have to do it if I want to have full tracks in my videos, and you know what? That's all right, because I love playing bass and writing bass lines and everything. Here's the best bass tone I can come up with my modified Squier P-Bass and the Revs clean channel into one of these cab sims. All right, let's talk about the pros and cons of both the Captor X and the aux box. Starting with the Captor X. A clear pro is the bass tone. I definitely prefer the cab options in the Captor X because at this point in the aux, you only get a bassman, like a 4x10 bassman cab, which is great, and it's there for those vintage bass tones. But if you're a bass player and want to use one of these as your main thing, and you want to be just even remotely versatile, that's going to be an issue with the aux because you only get this one cab. And of course, you can use it as a sort of a load box and get a DI signal out of it, like without any cab sims, which works really well if you pair it with the 4x10 bassman cab, which is something I did in my preset. So that's what you've heard. One channel was a DI signal and the other one was the bassman, and that works great together. But that really is a well, a limited tonal option, let's put it this way. With the Captor X, you get all kinds of bass cabs and microphones that will work great in front of those cabs. So they really thought more of a bass player and offer a number of options. And the second pro of the Captor X is the power soak, the power attenuation. I do prefer its tone because it just maintains all the sparkle, all the dynamics, and it's just a bit more fun using that. If I just want to use my cab, don't record anything, just want to make my way too loud tube amps a bit more usable in a smaller room. Next pro is definitely the price, obviously. So if that's an important factor, well, you cannot ignore that it costs like half of the aux, or maybe even a little less. Yeah, that's something. Also, let's not forget about the option of using IRs. If you want to use impulse responses you bought or you created yourself, you can easily do that with the Captor X. I've mentioned this in the original comparison video as well. The aux doesn't do that. To be honest, I tried it. I bought a couple of Celestion IRs, which are really good and have a very good reputation. And they do sound good in the Captor X. I tried it, but I do prefer, like by a mile, the dynamic IRs that the Captor X offers. So I guess if you have an IR that is just perfect and you have experience with it and you just want to keep on using it, that's great. With the Captor X you can do it. Probably there are people out there who want to have that option. For that reason, the Captor X is, well, more versatile. And now the pros of the aux box. To my ears, it just sounds a little more, like even a little more transparent than this 2x12 cab sim on the Captor X. It's just a tiny little bit. I cannot even explain what it is, but for some reason, it just feels more like home. It's probably just a personal preference thing, and it's definitely not something that I would always spot. It's not a big difference for sure. And if, I don't know, the best way of describing this is if my favorite guitar player just called me, let's say Joey Landreth, called me, hey dude, record a solo on my next album. Would never happen, but let's say it does. and I had to record something real fast. Like I didn't have time to go in a studio in a proper room, mic it with expensive mics and a great preamp and whatever. If I only had the option of recording myself at home, I would definitely choose one of these cab sims over miking my cabs, just because I have normal mics, not special mics. I don't have a super expensive preamp for them, and I don't have a room that's, well, this is treated for what I'm doing, but it's not like an expensive studio room. So I would choose one of these, and I would most probably choose this preset on the aux box. And I cannot even explain why. It's that plus 2%, I guess. Next pros for the aux box are the effects. Those, the compressor that's built in, that's magical, as well as the reverb, the play reverb built in, and the delay. So these three things already are worth, like if these were plugins, you would pay hundreds of euros for just these three plugins. And they're built in, and you can save them, tweak them, even turn them on and off with the foot switch that you can use now finally with the aux. So these effects are absolutely insane. Clear pro. All right, let me know in the comments what you think of all the tones you've heard, all the comparisons, all my thoughts. Meet you down there and see you next week in a new video. I'll be back. Bye-bye.